What if the biggest threat to your retirement isn't inflation, your health, or even the stock market, but a tax bill on a home you paid off years ago? That is the question flooding the comment sections right now. And it is not coming from investors or politicians. It is coming from everyday Floridians who did everything right, only to feel the ground shift beneath them again and again. Subscribe to Tax Hack Pro for daily updates. People are saying the same thing in different words. Nothing about my life changed, but my property taxes did. Seniors talk about opening mail they now dread, about school taxes they still pay long after their kids are grown, about the quiet fear of being forced to move, not because they want to, but because they can't keep up anymore. That rising anxiety is why Florida's new laws heading into 2026 are hitting such a nerve. These aren't abstract policy debates. These are changes that could decide who gets to stay in their home and who doesn't. Number 1, full local property tax exemption for seniors 65 plus. What if the most expensive part of retirement isn't healthcare, groceries, or even insurance, but simply staying in a home you paid off years ago? For many Floridians over 65, that question is no longer hypothetical. It shows up once a year in an envelope they hesitate to open, knowing that even though their life hasn't changed at all, the number inside almost certainly has. That is the problem the proposal for a full local property tax exemption for seniors 65 and older is trying to address. At its core, the idea is simple. If you are 65 or older and living in your primary residence, you would no longer pay county and city property taxes on that home. School taxes would still apply, but the local portion, often the most volatile and unpredictable part of the bill, would drop to zero. On paper, it may sound like a technical adjustment. In real life, it can be the line between staying put and being forced into a decision no one wants to face later in life. Florida's housing boom has exposed a quiet contradiction. Many seniors appear wealthy because their homes are now worth far more than when they bought them decades ago, but that value is locked inside the walls. It doesn't pay for prescriptions, it doesn't cover rising insurance premiums, and it certainly doesn't grow at the same pace as property tax assessments. Retirement income is designed to stay fixed, property taxes are not. That gap is where fear begins to creep in. Scroll through the comments and you see the same story repeated over and over. People say, "I did everything right, I worked. I paid taxes for decades. I paid off my home." They believed that once the house was theirs, stability would follow. Instead, they are watching local taxes rise year after year, completely disconnected from their ability to keep up. That is more than frustration. For many, it feels like betrayal. Supporters of this exemption argue that a primary residence in retirement shouldn't be treated as a revenue engine. When you are living on Social Security and savings, your home isn't a speculative asset. It is a shelter. It is a memory. It is the place where routines still make sense as other parts of life change. Removing local property taxes acknowledges a simple truth. Aging in place shouldn't be a privilege reserved for those with high incomes. The emotional weight behind this proposal matters just as much as the financial relief. Seniors aren't asking for something new. They are asking to stop being squeezed after decades of contribution. Many comments point out that they paid school taxes when their children were young. Some are still paying them now, long after their kids have children of their own. They don't resent contributing to society. What they resent is being quietly pushed out of their homes, one tax increase at a time. Of course, the proposal is controversial. Counties and cities rely heavily on property taxes to fund fire departments, police, roads, and local services. Critics worry that eliminating this revenue could lead to service cuts or higher fees elsewhere. That concern is real, but so is the cost of doing nothing. Seniors forced to sell don't disappear. They move in with family, put pressure on rental markets, or face housing instability at a stage of life when stability should matter most. The cost doesn't vanish, it just shifts. The bigger question beneath this debate is uncomfortable but unavoidable. Should a system built around rising property values continue to operate the same way for people whose income is designed not to rise? Florida, home to one of the largest senior populations in the country, is being forced to confront that question sooner than most states. That is why timing matters. These discussions are happening now because decisions made before 2026 will shape how property taxes work for years to come. Once budgets are locked in and political momentum fades, systems tend to stay in place. Seniors who miss this window rarely get a second chance. In the end, this proposal isn't about asking for special treatment. It is about restoring balance. Seniors paid into the system when they were able. A full local exemption simply acknowledges that retirement changes the equation because a home shouldn't feel like a ticking clock. And if Florida gets this right, it won't just lower a tax bill. It will give thousands of older residents something they are quietly losing: the confidence that they can stay where their life still makes sense. Number 2, income-based property tax elimination for seniors. After the idea of removing local property taxes altogether, Florida's next proposal goes deeper into a reality many seniors are quietly living with as the state looks ahead to 2026. It starts with an uncomfortable question: what if the problem isn't how much your home is worth, but how little your income can stretch now that it is no longer growing? As Florida's property tax system moves toward its next phase, more older homeowners are beginning to feel something is off. The system still behaves as if they are working, earning raises, and adjusting year after year. But retirement doesn't work that way. Income settles into place, expenses don't, and property taxes continue to rise as if nothing changed. That disconnect is exactly what an income-based property tax elimination for seniors is meant to address. Instead of taxing retirees based on market value alone, this proposal shifts the focus to what truly defines life after work: monthly income. Under this approach, seniors aged 65 and older who fall below a set household income threshold would see their local property taxes reduced or eliminated, even if their home has appreciated dramatically over time. It is a shift from paper wealth to lived reality. Florida's housing boom has made this tension impossible to ignore. On assessments, many seniors appear wealthier than ever. Their homes may be worth twice or three times what they paid decades ago. But that value is frozen. It doesn't buy groceries. It doesn't refill prescriptions. It doesn't soften rising insurance premiums. Meanwhile, tax bills climb as if retirement income rises in parallel. It doesn't. As 2026 approaches, a quiet pattern has emerged. Seniors aren't talking about luxury or lifestyle anymore. They are talking about trade-offs. Do you delay repairs to keep cash on hand? Do you cut back on care, travel, or simple comforts just to stay ahead of taxes? These aren't dramatic decisions, but they repeat year after year, slowly tightening the margins of retirement. This isn't poor planning. It is arithmetic catching up. What gives this proposal emotional weight is that it acknowledges something many retirees feel, but rarely say outright. Being asset-rich doesn't mean being cash secure. Owning a home doesn't guarantee you can afford to keep it under a system that never recalibrates downward. Income-based relief recognizes that retirement isn't a phase of growth. It is a phase of balance. Supporters argue this approach isn't a giveaway. It is targeted protection. It doesn't benefit investors or high-income households. It is designed for seniors who stayed put, lived within their means, and now find themselves exposed to a tax structure built for people still collecting paychecks. For them, even modest relief can restore something critical: predictability. There are still open questions. Income thresholds matter. Applications and documentation matter. Implementation may vary by county. Some worry that relief today could be offset by higher fees tomorrow. Those concerns are valid, and they highlight why understanding these changes before 2026 matters as much as the changes themselves. Number 3, elimination of local property taxes on homestead homes. For many Floridians nearing or already in retirement, the word home no longer represents comfort alone. It has quietly become a source of uncertainty. Not because the roof is failing or the neighborhood has changed, but because every year the cost of simply staying put feels harder to predict. That is the tension behind the proposal to eliminate local property taxes on homestead homes. This idea takes a broader approach than senior-only exemptions. Instead of focusing on age or income, it starts with a simple distinction. A primary residence is not the same as an investment property. Under this proposal, county and city property taxes on homestead homes would be removed, while school taxes would remain in place. For retirees, the impact could be immediate and meaningful. Many own their homes outright, yet still owe thousands of dollars each year in local taxes. Even though their income has long stopped growing, the pressure behind this proposal didn't appear overnight. Florida's property values have surged, and local tax bills rose with them. For working households, higher earnings can sometimes offset that increase. For retirees, there is no such cushion. Social Security adjustments lag behind real-world costs. Pensions are fixed, and savings are meant to be preserved, not chased by escalating taxes. Over time, property taxes have become one of the most unpredictable expenses in retirement. And unpredictability is exactly what older homeowners fear most. Supporters argue that removing local taxes from homestead homes would restore a sense of fairness and stability. A home you live in is not a luxury asset. It is shelter, routine, and identity. Treating it as a permanent revenue source ignores the reality of retirement, where the goal is not expansion, but continuity. Knowing that at least one major housing cost would stop climbing could change how long people are able to stay in their communities. At the same time, this proposal raises hard questions. Local governments depend heavily on property tax revenue to fund fire services, police, road maintenance, and other essentials. Eliminating that income would force difficult choices. Finding alternative funding, cutting services, or shifting costs elsewhere. Critics warn that removing one burden may simply relocate it under a different name. What makes this debate different as Florida looks beyond 2026 is the growing recognition that the current system may no longer match the population it serves. When long-term residents are pushed out, not by choice, but by costs they cannot control, the consequences ripple outward, affecting families, neighborhoods, and housing markets. Ultimately, the proposal to eliminate local property taxes on homestead homes is less about tax policy and more about what retirement is supposed to look like. Is it a stage of constant adjustment and anxiety, or one of predictability and dignity? Florida has not answered that question yet, but the fact that it is being asked now suggests the old assumptions may no longer hold. Number 4, gradual phase out of property taxes over 10 years. What if the real problem with property taxes isn't that they exist, but that they never seem to stop rising? That question sits quietly behind one of the more cautious, but potentially far-reaching ideas Florida is considering as it looks beyond 2026, a gradual phase out of local property taxes over a 10-year period. Unlike proposals that promise immediate relief, this approach starts from a more restrained assumption. Cities and counties cannot simply turn off a major revenue source overnight. Fire departments still need funding. Roads still need maintenance. Local services don't disappear just because homeowners are struggling. So instead of a sudden cut, this proposal rewrites the system slowly, year by year, under a gradual phase-out. The taxable portion of a homestead home would shrink over time. Each year, a larger share of the home's value would be exempt from local property taxes, easing the burden in stages rather than all at once. For retirees, that distinction matters. Living on a fixed income, predictability often matters more than speed. Knowing that taxes are scheduled to decline rather than spike unexpectedly can change how people plan the rest of their retirement. As Florida moves closer to 2026, this idea resonates because it mirrors how many seniors think about time. Retirement is not measured in decades of growth anymore. It is measured in remaining years of stability. A 10-year timeline overlaps directly with how older homeowners view the future. Even modest reductions, if they are reliable and permanent, can restore a sense of control that has been slipping away. Supporters argue that a gradual phase-out offers a balanced path forward. It gives homeowners relief without shocking local budgets. It allows governments time to adapt, find alternative funding, or restructure services responsibly. In theory, it avoids the whiplash that comes from abrupt policy shifts, while still acknowledging that the current trajectory is unsustainable for people whose income no longer rises. Critics, however, see risk in the slow pace. Some worry that spreading relief over a decade delays help for those who need it now. Others fear that future legislators could reverse course midway, leaving seniors with promises that never fully materialize. These concerns are especially sharp for older residents who have learned, often the hard way, that long timelines can be fragile. Still, the emotional appeal of this proposal lies in what it signals. It suggests Florida is beginning to question whether permanent rising property taxes make sense alongside permanent fixed retirement incomes. It reframes the debate from how much can we collect to how long can people realistically stay. Number 5, expanded Save Our Homes portability with no cap. For years, many Florida homeowners have stayed in houses that no longer fit their lives, not because they wanted to, but because they were afraid of what moving would cost them. That quiet fear sits at the center of the proposal to expand Save Our Homes portability with no cap, one of the most personally transformative ideas Florida is considering as it looks beyond 2026. The Save Our Homes rule was originally designed to protect homeowners from sharp property tax increases by limiting how much a home's taxable value can rise each year. It also allows homeowners to carry part of that tax protection with them if they move to a new primary residence. The problem has always been the limit. Under current rules, only a portion of that accumulated tax benefit can be transferred. For longtime homeowners, especially seniors, that cap often turns into a financial penalty. Removing the cap would fundamentally change that equation. Under this proposal, homeowners could transfer the full amount of their accumulated tax protection to a new homestead. For older residents, this is not about tax strategy or gaming the system. It is about freedom, the freedom to downsize without being punished, the freedom to move closer to children or medical care. the freedom to choose a home that matches aging bodies and changing needs, rather than staying trapped by a tax bill. Florida's housing market has quietly locked many seniors in place. Large homes that once made sense now come with stairs, maintenance, and costs that no longer do. Yet, selling often feels impossible because a new, smaller home can come with a dramatically higher tax bill. Over time, the house becomes less of a choice and more of a constraint. Expanded portability loosens that grip. Instead of framing this change as a benefit, it helps to see it as a correction. The current cap assumes homeowners should be discouraged from moving, even when moving is the responsible or necessary choice. Lifting that cap acknowledges that stability in retirement doesn't always mean staying put. Sometimes it means relocating without financial shock. There are broader ripple effects as well. When seniors can move more easily, housing supply opens up, family-sized homes return to the market, and communities become less frozen by fear-driven decisions. Mobility in this sense benefits not just individuals but entire neighborhoods. Of course, questions remain. How will portability be calculated? Will counties apply the rules consistently? Could expanded portability shift tax burdens elsewhere? These are valid concerns, and they underscore why the details matter as Florida approaches its next tax cycle. Number 6. Property tax freeze for long-term homeowners. For many long-term homeowners in Florida, the most frustrating part of property taxes is not a sudden spike, but the slow, relentless climb that never seems to stop. Year after year, the house stays the same. The routine stays the same, but the tax bill quietly grows, untethered from anything the homeowner actually controls. That slow pressure is exactly what a property tax freeze for long-term homeowners is meant to address. The idea behind a tax freeze is straightforward. After a homeowner has lived in their primary residence for a qualifying number of years, the taxable value of that home would stop increasing. Property taxes would still be owed, but the assessed value would be locked in place regardless of how much surrounding home prices rise. For retirees and older homeowners, this distinction matters. It replaces uncertainty with predictability. Florida's housing market has amplified the problem this proposal targets. As neighborhoods become more desirable, assessments rise automatically. For people still working, higher costs can sometimes be absorbed. For those living on fixed incomes, they cannot. Social Security and pensions do not adjust at the same pace as property values. Over time, even modest annual increases add up, quietly turning stability into stress. A tax freeze shifts the logic. It recognizes that longevity in a home should count for something. Homeowners who have paid property taxes for decades are not asking to escape responsibility. They are asking for the rules to stop changing once their earning years are behind them. Knowing that housing costs will not continue to creep upward allows retirees to budget with confidence and plan without constant anxiety. Number 7. Lower cap on property tax assessment increases. For many Florida homeowners, the real shock of property taxes doesn't come all at once. It comes quietly, in small annual increases that seem manageable on their own but add up year after year. Even when nothing changes in daily life, assessments continue to rise, slowly pushing tax bills higher. That slow creep is what the proposal to lower the cap on property tax assessment increases is designed to slow down. Under this idea, the maximum percentage by which a home's assessed value can increase each year would be reduced. Property taxes would still exist, but their growth would be more restrained and predictable. For retirees and homeowners on fixed incomes, that predictability matters. A smaller increase each year can mean the difference between adjusting comfortably and feeling constant pressure. What makes this proposal resonate is its realism. It doesn't promise to eliminate taxes or dramatically cut bills overnight. Instead, it acknowledges that retirement income doesn't grow like housing markets do. When assessments rise faster than income, the gap quietly widens. Number 8. Additional 25% homestead exemption for local taxes. Sometimes the most meaningful relief doesn't come from sweeping reforms, but from smaller adjustments that touch a wide group of people. That is the thinking behind the proposal to add an additional 25% homestead exemption for local taxes, a change that may not grab headlines, but could quietly ease pressure for many Florida homeowners. Under this proposal, an extra 25% of a homestead home's assessed value would be excluded from county and city property taxes. School taxes would remain unchanged. For homeowners, especially seniors on fixed incomes, this means a lower taxable base and a more manageable annual bill. The impact may vary by home value and location, but for many, the savings would be immediate and visible. What gives this idea weight is its simplicity. It doesn't require complex eligibility tests or income documentation. If the home qualifies as a primary residence, the exemption applies. That clarity matters for older homeowners who want relief without navigating complicated rules. Number 9. $100,000 property tax exemption for insured homes. In Florida, the cost of homeownership isn't rising from just one direction. Property taxes are going up, but so are insurance premiums, often at a much faster pace. For many homeowners, especially seniors, insurance has become a second tax, one that arrives monthly instead of once a year. That pressure is what the proposal for a $100,000 property tax exemption for insured homes is trying to relieve. Under this proposal, homeowners who maintain qualifying property insurance would be able to exclude up to $100,000 of their home's value from local property taxes. County and city taxes would be reduced accordingly, while school taxes would remain unchanged. The idea is simple. If homeowners are taking responsibility by keeping their homes insured, the tax system should recognize and offset part of that growing cost. For older homeowners on fixed incomes, this matters more than it might appear. Insurance premiums in some parts of Florida have doubled or even tripled in recent years. Many seniors now find themselves weighing coverage against affordability, a decision no one wants to make. This exemption offers a form of indirect relief, lowering taxes to help absorb rising insurance expenses. Critics raise questions about how insured will be defined and how local governments would replace the lost revenue. Supporters argue that encouraging insurance coverage while easing tax pressure helps stabilize both homeowners and communities. As Florida moves toward 2026, this proposal reflects a broader shift, acknowledging that housing costs don't rise in isolation and relief must address the full picture homeowners are facing. Number 10. Higher property tax exemptions for widows and disabled seniors. Some of the most important tax changes Florida is considering are also the quietest. Increasing property tax exemptions for widows and disabled seniors doesn't dominate headlines, but it speaks directly to those who are often carrying the heaviest burden with the least flexibility. For many widows, household income drops sharply after a loss, while housing costs remain the same or rise. For disabled seniors, medical expenses often increase just as earning capacity disappears. Under this proposal, higher exemptions would reduce the taxable value of a primary home for these groups, lowering annual property tax bills and easing long-term pressure. The impact is not dramatic in one single year, but it is meaningful over time. Smaller bills mean fewer painful trade-offs between housing, healthcare, and basic living costs. Supporters argue this is not about special treatment, but recognition of changed circumstances that the tax system has historically ignored. As Florida looks toward 2026, this proposal reflects a shift toward protecting the most vulnerable homeowners, not with sweeping promises, but with targeted, practical relief that helps them stay where they belong. All of these property tax proposals Florida is considering ahead of 2026 point to one simple question: will seniors still be able to stay in their own homes? This isn't just about laws or numbers. It is about stability, security, and dignity in retirement. If you live in Florida or are watching these changes for your own future, don't sit this out. Like the video, subscribe to Tax Hack Pro, and stay informed before these decisions are locked in and the rules quietly change. Thanks so much for sticking with us to the very end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the daily updates. And now, feel free to check out some of our latest and most popular videos shown on your screen. Goodbye and see you in the next one.